Hi, looking at one here. Living Colour's debut album from 1988, Vivid. And I picked this up secondhand about a year ago, and I got it for $1. See, just looking at the case, just without going too in depth, it's in pretty good condition. I imagine this would have been purchased in the late 80s, maybe early 90s. There's a few clues that tell us. Um, Firstly, this sticker here, which probably doesn't mean much to you, but for me, I have seen them. I remember them when I was a kid. So there's quality at a nice price, removable sticker. These were used especially at non-chain record stores. So, we had chain record stores here, just like you would have in your country, like Tower Records and what are the other ones? Virgin Megastore and things like that. Well, we had Sounds and ECM and HMV in the late 80s and True Tone and a bunch of other ones. Well, there were also independent ones, which were usually on little neighborhood high streets, like, suburb. The different cities are broken up in suburbs, and the suburb. So a common store you would see on a high street in a suburb or main street, maybe if you're in America, would be a CD/record shop, and it would just be called, blah blah record shop. It wouldn't have a special name or anything. It would just be the suburb name, music store, and they would often use these. I don't know what. Obviously it's kind of a distribution deal thing. I don't know exactly, but anyway, I haven't seen one of those for a good 30 years. So that's what would tell me it would be from the early 90s, late 80s. Also, just looking at it, the general condition. I talk a lot about this kind of smoky, cloudy plastic that you see in this vintage CDs, and this particular case has that. You can't really see it because it's not too bad, but it has, like, you can kind of feel it on the surface, and then if you look at it in certain angles and lights, you can see this cloudiness to it. It's got the black edging. It says 1988 here. There hasn't been any major reissuings since then, so yeah. Living Colour were they're still together. I should use the present tense. They are a band from America. Their genre, I guess, kind of flits between a few things. Rock, hard rock, alternative rock, funk, a little bit of jazz in there. But I guess rock and funk would be the two main things. And people say heavy metal. I wouldn't really class them as, they don't really get heavy enough to be heavy metal. More, I'd say, hard rock. And I guess what made them unique is that, well, not unique, it sounds stupid, but within a genre that typically was more, at least in this time in the 80s and 90s, was more dominated by white artists. These guys were African Americans, or I think Vernon Reid was actually born in Britain. So what is that? British? I don't know how. What anyway? Obviously, rock and roll and rock was a genre created by African Americans, and it's based in things like blues and jazz that came again from African Americans. So it's not as though it's completely unexpected. But like I said, by this time, the genre had become more white dominated, white influenced artists. But you can hear in their approach that they take a lot more influences from different genres and put them in there. Like I said, funk and jazz, and even a little bit of soul and things like that. So let's look at this particular one. Like I said, this is their debut. So the lineup at this time was, don't know if I can pick them all out. I know that's Corey Glover, the vocalist. Which one was Vernon Reid? Vernon Reid was a lead guitarist. Was that Vernon Reid? Then there was it Will Calhoun on drums, and at this time the bassist was Muzz Skillings, but he left in about '92, and then what was the guy who replaced him? Wimbash. What was his name? Something Wimbash. Doug Wimbash. So inside here we just got the lyrics, as you'd usually see in the late 80s. There wasn't anything super amazing in the booklet. It was always usually just basic liner notes and some lyrics, as we see here. So Corey Glover, the singer, he actually he acted quite a bit. I didn't realize how much he acted. I knew he was in Platoon, so the late 80s Vietnam War movie by Oliver Stone, Platoon, with who was the Charlie Sheen and Willem Dafoe, and who was the bad guy? The captain or the colonel went crazy. Anyway, one other guy. He got Willem Dafoe killed. What was Willem Dafoe's character name? Ugh, forget it. Anyway, Corey Glover was in that movie. He was just a small part, and then he's been in a few other bits and pieces, and he was also in the stage show for Jesus Christ Superstar. So he actually acted more than I realized. He's got an amazing voice, really strong voice. Vernon Reid is a really versatile guitarist. He can play a lot of different styles, and you hear that in this record as well. This particular record, there's quite a lot of funk influence in this, especially in some of the later songs. And to be honest, I'm not a big funk guy. When songs go too funk, it kind of turns me off a bit. We'll talk about that a bit as I go through. So we got Cult of Personality, maybe their most famous song, if not one of most famous songs. And I remember even when I was a kid, I used to see that on TV, the music video for that. You still hear it on rock radio today. It was used by WWE wrestler CM Punk. He uses it as entrance music, his entrance theme. We did 10 years ago. I don't know if he still does, but I remember they played live at one of the big wrestling shows like WrestleMania or Royal Rumble or one of those shows. They played live for his entrance when he came out. It was pretty cool. And he also used it when he was in the UFC, when he got his ass handed to him twice. He used it as music there as well. I Want to Know, it's a pretty great song as well. Middleman's okay. Desperate People. I really like the first minute of Desperate People. This is the same for Desperate People and Funny Vibe. And this is maybe the part of Living Colour that I don't fully get to. But both those songs, the first minute of the song starts off really well. And it's kind of like got a great riff. The rhythm section's kind of going along. It's kind of like, it sounds like a rock song. And then it kind of breaks at about the 1 minute mark and goes into kind of the first verse. And it's just a funk song. The funk guitar comes out. And it just reminds me, when that happens, and this is my own personal bias, obviously, it just reminds me too much of early Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that's kind of the part of the Red Hot Chili Peppers I don't like as well, when they get too funk. And I know that sounds stupid because they are, or at least were, largely a funk band for part of their early career. But I much prefer the songs where they stay away from that, or if they do use it, because also I completely hate funk guitar, but I need it to be diluted with something else. And that's what I think Living Colour does well, is when they merge the funk with more alternative rock, hard rock, and even a little bit kind of jazz. Like there's one, what was the song? Was it Broken Hearts? And the drumming, man, the drummer, Will Calhoun's a fucking amazing drummer. He actually went to Berkeley, the School of Music in, where is that, in Massachusetts, which is, one of the top music schools in the world. Only the best of the best go there. And so he's a graduate there. I think he graduated as like top of his class. He's master drummer. And you hear that in some of the songs, some of the he does this thing. I'm not a drummer, okay, and I'm going to probably say some things, and drummers will go, "Oh, that's not that hard. That's not that special." But I'm just judging on what I hear, what my ears hear, and I think it's "Broken Hearts" is the song I'm talking about. And he does it. He's doing this relatively complicated beat, and then he's doing this thing on the ride cymbal, like this kind of completely different rhythm at the same time on the ride. It sounds like got like four different hands going. It's and just throughout the whole thing, he's an amazing, amazing drummer, Will Calhoun. And he's actually worked with a lot of other artists as well. He's done a lot of other work because Living Colour broke up for a period in the 90s, kind of after their commercial peak. And he did quite a lot of other work in other genres, like a lot of in jazz, and he's got side projects and different things he has going. But yeah, a brilliant, brilliant drummer. Um, Open Letter to a Landlord. That's a good song. A lot of their songs have kind of I guess, a social commentary going on. So that's obviously talking about, I guess, gentrification and the kind of the ghettoization of certain neighborhoods and slumlords and things like that. Funny Vibe, I think, is about judging people. Like, I think he's writing it from the perspective of walking towards someone. Actually, let's look, because I'm going to get this wrong if I don't look at the actual lyrics. No, I'm not. Yeah, that's right. No, I'm not going to rob you. No, I'm not going to beat you. No, I'm not going to rape you. So what? So why you want to give me that funny vibe? So I guess that's kind of, the prejudice that would exist in towards African Americans, I guess, in some situations. These guys have probably lived that, and maybe that's what that song's about. Glamour Boys, probably one of their other biggest songs. I remember they used that in New Zealand for a advertisement campaign for the NRL Rugby League. Rugby League is like rugby, but it's 13 players, and it's basically only played in Australia. It's actually played in the north of Britain, and like up north in England, like Leeds and Wigan and places like that. But it's a much, much smaller game than rugby, but it's a lot kind of, I guess, tougher. And it was also professionalized before rugby. Rugby was an amateur game around the world until the mid 90s. The players weren't professional. A lot of them had like day jobs. They go play, international tests on the weekend and go do their job on the weeks. But rugby league was professionalized a lot before that, so players would go there to get paid, and paid quite well. And so they use this kind of the theme Glamour Boys. These guys are rich, and they, even though if you listen to the song, I guess it's meant to be a social commentary on the commercialization and the materialism and stuff like that. What's the the chorus? I'm not a glamour boy, I'm fierce. I'm not a glamour boy. Is that what he says? Yeah, I ain't no glamour boy, I'm fierce. And I didn't say, but Mick Jagger's involved in this, and it actually says his name over here. Two of the tracks, Glamour Boys and Which Way to America, were produced by Mick Jagger, and he plays harmonica in Broken Hearts. And he does backing vocals in Glamour Boys and Which Way to America. However, I heard that he did that about 2 or 3 years ago. I first learned that. Well, actually, it was probably longer than that. Maybe it was 5 or 10. Whatever. It was a few years ago I learned that. And I listened back to the song trying to hear. I cannot for the life of me hear Mick Jagger in any way in that song, as in backing vocals. There's that one part when the chorus, I ain't no glamour boy, and it goes, woo, which I guess is a very Mick Jagger thing. So maybe he's in doing the woos, in the background woos. There's a few backing vocals throughout the song. I'm not saying there's no, but nothing sounds particularly like Mick Jagger. And Mick Jagger has got a relatively recognizable voice. So yeah, maybe they mixed him way down. Yeah, I don't know exactly how Mick Jagger got involved with these guys, but it was interesting to see that. Then the song after that is probably my least favorite song on the album. Actually, not probably. It is my least favorite song on the album. What's Your Favorite Color? Way too funk and a bit novelty song sounding to my ears. So we'll leave that one. Which Way to America? That's a great song. Really tight song. got some funk to it, but when I say tight, just listening to the bass, the rhythm section together especially. And that's what I think this band does particularly well, is the rhythm section is excellent. Vernon Reid is an amazing guitarist in the vein of Hendrix and so many other great, he's has like the solo in Cold Living Personality. I've heard people talk about that before. And I've read an interview with him where he said he can't recreate it exactly. Like he just went in there and just did it off the cuff. Although I have seen YouTube videos of guys who have note by note gone through it and tabbed it and then redone it. None of them sound as good as the one on the record. I've also heard live versions that he does, and he always does it a little bit different. But what I was saying is the rhythm section is really locked in, and that gives Vernon Reid, I guess, the opportunity to go every which way he wants to go, whether that be into the funk or other places. But it's a great album. I kind of complained there about the overpreponderance of funk, but it's actually it certainly doesn't take away from it to the extent that I don't like it. I like this album a lot. It's solid, and when I say solid, I'm saying that as in the whole way through. Other than track 10, I enjoy every song, even though there are bits that maybe I don't appreciate as much as others. It's a great album. Now they made a few albums after this, because they did that. Their other big song, I guess, is the one "Love Rears Its Ugly Head," which perhaps is my favorite song that they ever did. That's like just such a brilliant written piece of music. That's like, yeah, master songwriting. That song, in some ways, it's like a perfect song. It's got everything, and Corey Glover's voice on that song, it's like at another level. I would think that was on the second album they did. Let me just look. So they did Time's Up in 1990, Stain in 93. After 93, they broke up. And like I said, the bassist Muzz Skillings left after 1990, and he was replaced by Doug Wimbash, another amazing bassist who's done a lot of session work. You look through his Wikipedia, and he's worked with a lot of people before and after this band as a kind of session guitarist. But yeah, they're a great band. Okay, so it is Time's Up is the second album, and that is the one with Love Rears Its Ugly Head. Also got Elvis is Dead. I remember that one. But yeah, a great band that I always felt they had a bit more in them. As in, I thought they would have gone higher. They would have got more, kind of been bigger. And I'm saying this in retrospect, looking back, because I was a bit young. Like this came out in '88. I would have been 6 or 7 years old. So I'm not saying at the time, as a little 6-year-old, I'm going, man, I wish these guys had got better. But I'm saying looking back and listening to their songs, and also the time and context of which their music was in, with kind of the kind of blow up of punk and alternative rock and grunge, and then kind of the Chili Peppers really exploding that kind of funk rock as well, and I guess bands like Faith No More as well. I thought they would have a place to kind of to get even more popularity. They also, I remember, did a cover of Cream's "Sunshine of Your Love" for the movie with Schwarzenegger. What was it? What's the one where Arnold Schwarzenegger is no, he's a spy, but he's undercover, and even his wife doesn't. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. Well, they did a cover version of "Sunshine of Your Love" for that movie, and it was quite a good cover version. Hang on a second, because that's going to drive me crazy. True Lies is the movie that I was talking about. "Sunshine of Your Love" for the True Lies soundtrack. And that was kind of their last single before they broke up. That was '94, after the Stain album. And then they got back together in the early 2000s, and they've made 3 albums since then, which I'll admit I haven't heard anything of. Kaleidoscope, maybe that is, The Chair in the Doorway, and Shade from 2017, their most recent. So yeah, Living Color, great band, some great songs. Um, sometimes into the funk too much for my liking, but that's just me. And yeah, not much else to say really. Thank you for watching. Take it easy.